Shield Therapeutics was set up by myself about 10 years ago after the company I worked for got purchased by a much larger pharmaceutical business. And I had an idea of developing a company that would focus on specialty medicines. Feraccru came through, we did a horizon scanning of all sorts of products. And having had a background in pulmonary hypertension, I knew that patients with anemia, patients with PH had quite a difficult time with anemia. So when I came across what is now called Feraccru, I had a penny drop moment or a light bulb moment. And I could see that these patients who had, from the Phase II data that we saw with Feraccru, these patients that had significant issues with existing oral therapies, this could really solve a problem for them. Any investment has to have an end case to it from a valuation viewpoint. And this is a product that will treat patients. Iron deficiency, 40 million patients in Europe alone with iron deficiency. And Feraccru now has an approval for iron deficiency. So the science stacked up and the commercial argument stacked up, and it really made a compelling investment case for myself, which is why I then put the money in to capitalize the business and buy the asset. So Feraccru is very different to existing oral therapies. It is not a salt-based product. Therefore, you do not get free iron in the gut, and it's the free iron that causes all of the intolerance issues generally. It gets very well absorbed. Because you don't get the free iron, you don't have to take it with food. If you don't take it with food, you can take much smaller quantities of the product as well. And anybody with a toxicology background will know that the less you give, necessarily the less side effects you get as well. So looking for a European-focused commercial partner that had that momentum, has that critical mass, has plenty of funding, was really important for us. And also for a company for whom Feraccru would be a critical product. And we could have licensed the product to one of the really big pharma companies, and frankly, it would have been a backfill. Whereas for Norgine, it's front and center for them, and Feraccru will get the focus it deserves. And to put that into context, when the drug first got approved in Europe, we started the commercialization process, but even at our peak, we only had about 20 people focused on the commercialization. Norgine have more than that in the UK alone. So in the UK and Germany, where they're currently actively selling the product, they have about 80 sales reps, plus medical support, plus all the other support that a company of that size has. So really, it should give Feraccru a much bigger share of voice. More patients get prescribed the product that is better for them. So we now have a multitude of trials with a broad approval that really underpin the effectiveness of this therapy. And then, of course, most recently, as your question alluded to, we have data now that shows that Feraccru is in the formal terminology, is non-inferior to intravenous iron, specifically Ferinject, and that's almost $1 billion product. So for all those patients and all those prescribers who have failed existing oral therapies, the salt-based generally, salt-based irons, because of intolerance issues, and prior to this data, probably their only way to go was a treatment with intravenous iron. I think this now very clearly states that actually, no, there is something else. There is another, frankly, more convenient oral therapy that you can take that doesn't need you to go into hospital, doesn't need to be administered intravenously. So one would hope it just provides a much greater, much better alternative to those patients. Very similar, really, to what we're doing in Europe. We have made it a strategic goal that rather than self-commercializing with Feraccru, we will seek best-in-class partners within geographies, within major geographies. So, as we've previously announced, we've started the process of trying to identify a suitable partner for Feraccru on the assumption that the FDA will come back to us with a positive response, because we've submitted the NDA. The PDUFA date is slated for the 27th of July. So we're working towards that date with the expectation that probably shortly thereafter we would hopefully be in a position to announce a deal with what we would consider a best-in-class partner for that market as well. As per our public announcements, we've made it clear that we have funding through to 2020 based on our current expectations. Clearly, a US deal would significantly aid. If you think about what we did in Europe, with if I just speak in dollar terms, an approximate $15 million upfront we took for the commercialization of Feraccru from Norgine, and Europe is a much smaller market. The products are generally less expensive, so the royalties that flow are necessarily lower. And just the whole market opportunity of the US is the biggest, I think, somewhere in the region of 40% of the global pharmaceutical market. So any deal we do with a partner in the US, we would expect a material upfront plus development and sales milestones and royalties similar to what we've done in Europe. And that would clearly extend our cash runway.